Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Radhika Kasturi Mataji, please accept a humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for the opportunity. Can we get started?
Yes, Mataji, we have done the shloka and the translation and the papad.
Okay, Mataji.
So you
Om
can
Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurummilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna-prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swamin Niti-namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisheshya Shunyavadi Paschayata-deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear devotees. Just wanted to pay my humble obeisances to all of you all here on the call, so that I'm able to speak the relevant words of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. All right. So it's a very nice verse, and so we have so the discussion that is going on Varnashrama. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about Varnashrama before we actually get into the subject matter. And I was thinking we can actually talk about pastimes from Chaitanya Charitamrita to kind of illustrate the point what Mahaprabhu is teaching through this particular verse. Again, Gaur Purnima is coming up, so I just wanted to make sure that we're all in that mood to actually perceive Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. So a couple of things about Varnashrama, right? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So what happened in the previous times was that people started identifying with their birth. Okay, I'm born in this Brahmin family, so I'm a Brahmin. Again, instead of nature of their birth, okay, what is my nature? Instead of looking into that, they started identifying with the birth. And now, say, for example, they would just say, oh, we are born in this family of Brahmins, so we are higher, right? And then caste system started to come into place, right? I mean, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, they started to identify themselves with the caste system. So now, again and again, Srila Prabhupada stresses in various purports that the varna is dependent. Definitely, you should not identify with the birth, but instead the nature of the birth, the nature of your guna or characteristics is what determines which varna you actually belong to. And again, in India, because obviously this was the caste system was there. Now what happened was the higher caste system started to dominate the weaker section. So like Brahmanas, they started to dominate over the weaker sections, and they said, oh yeah, you're not allowed to enter into the temple, things of that nature. And higher caste, when they married the lower caste, that also created some problems and issues. And Brahmanas, if you look at the Varna per se, Brahmanas, they have a strong identification, okay, with what? With scriptures. They are well versed in scriptures, and the purpose of that was kind of, okay, you guys have to be detached, or you should not be hankering for any kind of sense gratification. You should always remain happy and peaceful and satisfied. And then now Kshatriyas, they are given a word to protect people. And then Vaishyas, they were asked to do business and charity. And Sudras, where they were asked to serve the other three classes. So there is a strong identification that actually comes with Varnashrama, right? If you look at it, each Varna had a specific characteristic and a specific purpose, and there was a strong identification to that. And why? What was the plan by having this identification? Of course, our identification should be dasanu, das. But then These are people who have attachment to work, and they have been given responsibilities according to their nature, right? And eventually, having Krishna in the center, Varnashrama is supposed to operate having Krishna in the center. And eventually, these people, with this identification, they have to come to a Nishkama platform, meaning they have to become detached. And that was the goal. And slowly, then they progress into the yoga ladder, right? There is this yoga ladder, which we talked about in Bhagavad Gita. And slowly, through Nishkama, they will then elevate to Jnana or Ashtanga, and then they, obviously reach the perfection or the perfected goal. This is the plan. Varnashrama has to evolve, and that they, through this identification, slowly they have to come to the Nishkama platform and then progressively move on. But at any point in time, if they come in contact with a pure devotee of the Lord, obviously there are chances for them to elevate. I mean, in the sense, directly take up Bhakti Yoga and attain Prema as their goal. So this is the story to Varnashrama, meaning what is going on, what is the purpose. Again, if you look at the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that lower tendency. See, the thing is, the higher caste people started to dominate and started to misuse their privileges that were given to them, and they started to have a little bit of domination over the weaker sections, and that is not allowed. Okay, that was not the intent of Varnashrama system, but eventually Srila Prabhupada said that's what happened. And hence, the goal of the Varnashrama was obviously distorted, right? I mean, the goal was to get into slowly. They have to progress through this yoga ladder, and eventually they have to attain perfection. And obviously, when you have this Varna and Ashrama defined, your lower tendencies will not allow you to do anything. Say, for example, a sannyasi is there or a brahmachari is there. A brahmachari, he can go to a hotel and drink a cool drink, right? This is actually helping him to regulate. Okay, what is he doing? What is the purpose? So he has a definite identification, and with that identification, he works through it and slowly progresses through the stages of yoga ladder. So this is the understanding we need to have as far as Varnashrama. And again, we have Krishna in the center, and hence everything is aligned that way. We're having Krishna in the center. So what is Krishna in the center? If Nishkama Karma Yogi has Krishna in the center, he is detached with the results. And what does he do with the results? He gives the fruits to Krishna, isn't it? So that is what it means, having Krishna in the center. And even as he progresses through this yoga ladder, if you were to enter into Jnana or Ashtanga, everything has to have bhakti. Without bhakti, none of the other processes work. So this is what is the understanding we can get from the purport as such. So again, the points to remember here are that the Varnashrama, I mean, obviously people started to identify with the birth, because of which it created problems. Instead of it, depending on our nature or swabhava, we have to identify which Varna we actually belong to. And based on that, if we were to do a particular activity, then we will be peaceful and satisfied, because we have a strong inclination for that particular activity to be done when it comes to Varna. And hence, we should not try to dominate over the other sections, the higher sections. There's no higher and lower as such. Everybody is the limb of the Lord, and everybody has to work harmoniously, having Krishna in the center. This is what is the intent of Varnashrama Dharma. So let's move on and understand a pastime which is very interesting from Chaitanya Charitamrita, that actually talks about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked at it from his perspective. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, obviously, he did not differentiate one is superior over another. Okay, so he told Raghunath Goswami, don't get married, don't become entangled, remain a brahmacharya. Then he told Nityananda Prabhu, you get married, find a nice wife, and just live in Grihastha Ashrama. In this way, Mahaprabhu, he was actually directing his devotees according to what was most needed as a service to human society to elevate them in Krishna consciousness at that point in time. Depending on that, he gave particular instructions, okay, to each and every person. So the best way a particular devotee can act is according to his nature and inclinations. And that would help him advance in devotional service. And hence, these two factors are very, very important, he says. What are the two factors? And that is what actually determines what varna you actually belong. Nature and inclinations. And that's, it's not the birth which determines the same. Then obviously he felt that there is a need for grahasthas also in Krishna conscious society, because after all, our spiritual mission is to survive, and there must be some fun, isn't it? And there must be people who are exemplary. And so even if you look at our sannyasis and brahmacharis, they are dependent on the farmers for growing food. So each of them is dependent on the other sect of people, and they are not allowed to do everything by themselves. They are dependent and they are engaged in this trade and all sorts of activities. So grihastha ashrama is also essential for a society. And there is also need for people in that ashrama who should be pure, who should be moral, who should be compassionate, who should be charitable, and who also must be God conscious. So this is definitely important, and we need to have that. I mean, definitely this is needed. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he established a perfect standard where every ashram, every ashrama, he thought that, each one can contribute in their own way. So there was no differentiation that way. He was constantly, when he was a grahastha, he was constantly inviting people to his house, feeding them first, and whatever was left over, that is what he would eat. In this way, he made it a point to help everyone understand that grahastha ashrama means detachment. There's also detachment in this varna that we should imbibe. As I told you, eventually the purpose of this varna is to obviously detach, right? I mean, detachment is needed. Slowly they come to Nishkama platform, and then they elevate themselves and attain perfection. So this is what Mahaprabhu also was intending to do. He was acting as an example, right? Acting as an example, literally showing people, see, we have to be compassionate. We have to first feed the people who come to our house, and then whatever is left is what we eat. And sometimes he would give us his own clothes. He would be very compassionate. He would give away holy name. That is a sublime form of charity, isn't it? So constantly this was happening. And obviously when it comes to grihasthas, detachment is needed, because how is detachment cultivated to the grihasthas? Through charity. They cannot be selfish. The inclination of the grihasthas, if you look at them, it's always I and mine, right? I'm in this body, I have this family, that is my wealth, and I have to do something for my family. So that's always the motivation that we have. So what is actually maybe forbidding us from progressing in this path of devotional service is the I and mine mentality, right? The selfish mentality, and that is a terrible if you look at it, it's a terrible impediment for spiritual advancement. And hence, a grahastha, he must actually see outside of his own circle of me and mine. So you definitely, as Shastras say, we cannot become Krishna conscious if we are self-centered, and we have to be God-centered. And God-centered means what? Service attitude. And service attitude is the most important thing for spiritual advancement. Therefore, the first social principle for all grahasthas is that we need to be charitable. To the extent we help those who are in need, physically, mentally, and spiritually, to that extent we can actually progress also in our devotional service. Definitely, yeah, because grahasthas, they work, they have their jobs, and they are the ones who have to help and support the other classes of people, right? We have sannyasis, we have brahmacharis. We should definitely be willing to support the other sect. And a spiritual duty, as such, if you look of a grahastha, is to perform their sadhana. Of course, chant their rounds strictly according to the moral principles, that is the 4 regulative principles. And then we have to offer our house also to the Lord. Meaning, we have to have kirtans, we have to have festivals, we have to have everybody come to our house and sing the glories of the Lord, to especially serve and hear the scriptures regularly in association with sadhus. So if the grahastha, if he's going to perform these kind of duties as in terms of sadhana, then what happens? He will definitely contribute and spiritualize the society around him, re-spiritualize the society around him. So now, according to natural inclinations, according to one's own consciousness, sometimes we can advance better as a grahastha or better as a brahmachari or better as a sannyasi. So these are the factors that needs to be considered. What are the factors? How we can best serve suffering humanity and how we can best advance spiritually in our lives. If we consider these two factors, then that will help us gauge, okay, how can we better contribute? Can I become to advance? Am I better off being a grahastha or better off being a brahmachari or a sannyasi, right? So this way we should understand our nature first, and the swabhava is very important, and accordingly we then pick up, okay, what is best suited for us, and not prematurely decide and go into something and then feel, oh my God, I just made a mistake, right? Anyways, coming back to Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a beautiful story. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was actually living in Jagannath Puri with some of his residents from Srikanta actually came to him. And Srikanta is a it's a holy place. It's close to Katwa. And that is where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually accepted his sannyas order. And most of the exalted devotees, the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the residents of the place, especially during Chaturmasya, along with the residents of Kulina Gram, Navadip Dam, Shantipur, the residents of Shantipur, all of them, the residents of Srikanta, all of them would come to visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. And what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu do to them? He would actually give specific instructions, what you have to do throughout the year. He would give each of them specific instructions. And then if you look at the people of Srikant, they are all very devout followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. So every year they would go to Jagannath Puri, and they would, and whenever they come na, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would just welcome them with such ecstatic love. So much love he has for them. And he loved this particular village also. This particular village is very, very close to Gauranga Mahaprabhu's heart. And he definitely loved all of them there. And we are going to see a story about three people, right? One was Mukunda Sarkar, and there are actually two brothers, Mukunda Sarkar, Narahari Sarkar from Srikanta, and Mukunda's elder, if you look at Mukunda's son, his name was Raghunandan. So these are the three people we are going to talk about in today's storyline. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, he gave 3 instructions to 3 of these devotees. And these are all very, very important for us to understand. He told Mukunda Sarkar, see, you are a grahastha. You are a grahastha, and your duty is to earn material and spiritual wealth. This is the instruction he told to Mukunda Sarkar. And then he told Raghunandan. Raghunandan is Mukunda Sarkar's son. He's a brahmachari, and his duty is now to serve the deity of the Lord. And then he told Narahari Sarkar, you should actually stay with me in Jagannath Puri, and you should just preach the glories of the holy names of the Lord. This is what are the 3 instructions that he gave to 3 of his most intimate devotees. Now we will understand one by one as to what these specific instructions are, and how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this service to them, with what intent he gave this service to them. So it's a very interesting section. Srila Prabhupada, he explains that these 3 types of services essentially are given to them, and Lord respects all of these services equally if they are done with sincere devotion. That is what is the intent that Srila Prabhupada is saying through this particular story. And now let's go on to specific instructions that were given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to first Mukunda. Mahaprabhu, although he gave detailed instructions to Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, we all know, because they were given instructions to actually go and write transcendental literatures to give us guidance. Okay, but what is the, so what is our Sampradaya? And we need to understand so many literatures that they have published, because of which we are able to at least have the hope that we will be able to get closer to the Lord, isn't it? So these people, they were given specific instructions. Coming back to Mukunda, Mukunda is a grahastha, we know. He actually earns, but he uses his wealth for propagating Krishna consciousness. And he also follows Krishna consciousness very, very carefully in his own life. According to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is the perfect execution of the duty of a grahastha. So he said, Mukunda, see, your service is to first earn material. I mean, your service is to earn both material and spiritual wealth. By your sadhana, what you can achieve? You can achieve spiritual wealth. So this is the duty of every grahastha. So you must earn material wealth for what? For raising your family in Krishna consciousness, because the body and soul have to be kept together. And in order for you to do service, you need material wealth, and hence we need to earn that from that perspective. And more important thing is that you should have this mood of being a proper servant to the society by supporting and spreading compassionate work of the Lord. This mood must definitely be there in you. So this is very important. And so again, to earn spiritual wealth means we must not have the license to be loose. We must be very strict, he says. Don't think that because you're not a brahmachari or because you're not a sannyasi, that gives me a leeway. Maybe I don't have to chant rounds strictly. Maybe I don't have to do attentive rounds of chanting. Maybe I don't have to attentively hear to Chaitanya Charitamrita or Srimad Bhagavatam. If you're going to have this kind of mentality, that is not a good mentality to have, right? We should actually, every ashrama is very, very important in their own way, and every ashrama should perform their sadhana in a very, very strict way. This is the message that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to give us. To earn spiritual wealth means to be determined and be strict in your spiritual practices, as like anybody else. You can have role models, you can have sadhus who are role models in your life. Okay, learn from them, hear from them and follow their instructions very, very seriously. Try to execute whatever they say. When you do all of that, we can definitely become a strict sadhana practitioner, isn't it? We will not become loose in our devotional service. So we should also, he says, we should also be an example in terms of how you should not be selfish, you should be unselfish, charitable, and pure to the devotion in Lord. Mukunda has given this kind of advice. So the same applies for all the grahasthas, isn't it? This was the instruction the Lord actually gave to Mukunda. So he wanted, what are some of the points we learned? He wanted him to earn material wealth and spiritual wealth. Material wealth for maintaining his family who is Krishna conscious. At the same time, he wanted Mukunda to do a very strict sadhana and propagate the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, propagate Krishna consciousness. He wanted him to do that, and he did not want him to take it easy. There's no leeway in this process of devotional service. If you are a grahastha, you should definitely practice sadhana bhakti very, very seriously. There is an urgency, there is definitely needed, and you should be unselfish, charitable, and you should have pure devotion to the Lord. So this is what was the instruction that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to who? Mukunda. And now coming back to his son. Okay, what instruction did he give Raghunandan? He told Raghunandan, you should always engage in the worship of the deity in the temple. He told Raghunandan, your duty is to serve the deity of the Lord. Again, why is temples necessary? Temples are necessary because that is the places where people come together with a spiritual goal and motivations in life, isn't it? A pujari in the temple, if he is not doing his service properly, if he is lazy or if he is unproductive, that is not what is the intent, isn't it? These days, if you go to the holy places, the pujaris sometimes are deviating from their responsibilities, and that has to be taken care of. The motive is they have to give us love of God. They have to teach us the high standard of spirituality. So they have to propagate this mission of Krishna consciousness by living in the temple. They are meant to serve the Lord. And with service to the Lord, they actually show us what detachment is. They do service with such devotion and love. They act as examples. Anyone who comes to the temple, they can see Krishna in the form of deity, but they can also see the love and devotion of the person who's serving in the deity, isn't it? Because they actually show the mood, how a deity should be served. A deity is non-different from Krishna. The way the love is portrayed to the deities is something that the pujaris actually teach us, isn't it? They are the servants of the deity and they exhibit that mood and they teach us that mood. And everybody who has questions as to how to become perfect in our lives, they go to them because temple is the way where spiritual exchanges happen. And so that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, oh, Raghunandan, you have to go to the deity and become the servant of the deity and show the mood to people, how a deity must be worshipped with love, care, and devotion, and understanding the mood that deity is non-different from the Lord. There must be a spirit of detachment, there must be a spirit of devotion, and there must be a spirit of surrender and attachment towards the Lord. So this transformation comes when we actually go to meet saintly people, right? Why do we go to holy dhams? When we go to holy dhams, there is association that can happen with the saintly persons, isn't it? Through that association, a moment's association with a saintly person can transform many people's lives. So they teach us, okay, this is the way you have to see the deity. This is the way you have to actually serve the deity. This is the way you actually have to love the deities. So through that association, the transformation of heart happens. Therefore, there is a great need in society. In terms of brahmacharis, obviously, Jagunandan was a brahmachari. There is a need for brahmacharis who worship the deities. Not only brahmacharis who worship the deities, but even people in their homes, they worship their deities. So this is very, very important for us to understand. So now we will also look into the instructions that are, we will move on to the next section, which is instructions that were given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Narahari Sarkar. So one second, dear devotees. Yeah. So let's see. Okay, the next instruction was to Narahari Sarkar. What was the instruction? He says, you should remain with my devotees and you should preach the glories of the Lord. So there is a need for preachers in the ashram. And he told Narahari Sarkar, you stay here with me in Jagannath Puri and you should preach. So very important, right? Each and every instruction is very important. From that perspective, each and every service is very important. So again, if you look at Narahari Sarkar, he has Lochan Das Thakur as who wrote Chaitanya Mangal, right? He's one of the disciples of Narahari Sarkar. So now, what is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu trying to say through Narahari Sarkar? He says, one who preaches by his words must know we have nothing to speak. It's just not our own ideas that we are speaking. But a speaker, he must just be a simple messenger who delivers the words of the spiritual master. So what are the speakers supposed to do? They just have to repeat. They just have to be like a parrot, repeating the words of our spiritual master. They are, whatever they are saying, it's the words of Krishna, right? The preaching means to repeat. Again, we are not creating anything, but we are just repeating. The repetition of absolute truth. That has the potency. That has the ability to change people's heart. So again, preaching is a great responsibility, and faith in Krishna consciousness is the most important thing. This preacher has to actually share it with the world, because at the end of the day, everybody should be convinced of our philosophy, convinced of what Krishna has to say, convinced of what our acharyas have to say, and then only they can execute. Now, once you're convinced, okay, this is what is our philosophy, then you will have the vigor to execute the philosophy or imbibe it in your life. So that way, for a preacher, he must definitely induce more and more faith to the devotees. And again, he felt that this can be attained. Where you can become a good preacher when you associate with people who actually have this faith. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the Lord himself. And how fortunate is Narahari Sarkar to be with him in Jagannath Puri and get this faith so that he can inculcate faith in everybody else. Right? And people who can nourish and culture that faith through the words, not only through their words, but also through their actions. They are living the scriptures. If again, Srila Prabhupada always says, no, purity is the force. And preacher again should be never proud, because how can we be proud of what is not ours? Whatever we speak, it's all Krishna's, isn't it? The only qualification is that I'm just simply used as an instrument to serve the Lord, repeating the words of my spiritual master. And the preacher himself, he has nothing to give. If he's trying anything else to give, that means he becomes a cheater, isn't it? So this is the greatest charity a person can do, giving this transcendental knowledge to everybody. And that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave this instruction to Narahari Sarkar just to be with him so that he can, through the association with the pure sadhu, pure devotee, I mean, who's Lord Krishna himself in the mood of Radharani, he can just get so much faith, and and through that faith he can preach to the whole world. So this was, and again Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says the charity that the greatest charity one can give is transcendental knowledge. It could be in the form of distribution of books, it could be chanting the glories of the holy names of the Lord, it could be coming together and doing the Sankirtan, right? Anything that actually pleases the Lord, because he wants everybody, all the conditioned souls, to come back to him. Till the time they don't see the Lord, they are going to suffer. And that is why this devotee is very compassionate to spread Krishna consciousness, so that everybody in this world can nourish themselves. And again, does the suffering not happen to a devotee? Of course, suffering happens to a devotee, but then he knows how to tackle it. He knows what is he at least has this right knowledge, because of which he is able to tackle whatever problems comes in his life, isn't it? So that is the understanding. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here is giving instructions to Mukunda, Raghunandan, Narahari with 3 different services. Again, if you look at it, they're all one because they are intimately dependent on each other, isn't it? Each service is dependent on one another. So the social body of 4 varnas and 4 ashramas is explained that in such a way, sannyasis are the head of the social body. They give directions. Brahmacharis, they are like the arms, and grahasthas, they are like the belly. In this way, each part of this body is very, very necessary. But the thing is, body can be healthy when all these parts are working harmoniously with one another, isn't it? All these parts have to serve, all these parts have to cooperate. Every day, each devotee should feel he's an humble servant of another devotee. We should never think we are superior or better than anyone. Every living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna. And Krishna, he is residing in everyone's heart. And that is why we give respect to this devotee. Every time when we see devotee, we see the Paramatma in the heart of that devotee. We give respect to them, right? And this is the point. The servant of the servant of the servant, that mood should be there. That way we live in harmony with Krishna. And that way we live in harmony with all the devotees. Without this principle of being the servant of the servant of the servant, what happens? It will actually create disharmony. Between what? Between our own soul and God, right? I mean, between our own soul and God, there will be disharmony. And as a result, this will cause disharmony with other devotees of the Lord also. So it doesn't matter whether we are a temple president, whether we are a spiritual master, whether we are a pujari, whether we are a grahastha, whether we are earning wealth, whether we are maintaining the family. What matters the most, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is this mood of being the servant of the servant of the servant. That is the mood we need to inculcate. Any action when we do with that mindset, that action will have a favorable consequence. Okay, dear devotees, this is a very, very important principle that we all need to follow. Why we are doing some wrong actions? That is because we are not establishing ourselves in the mood of being the servant of the servant of the servant. That is the reason why we are actually led astray. And that is the reason why we are doing what we are not supposed to do. When we identify ourselves other than this mood of being the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord, then we are committing mistakes, definitely. Because one way we identify with the body, or one way we identify ourselves with the mind, and this approach should be avoided as much as possible. Again, our bhakti process is very, very, we need to have utsaha, nishya, and dhairya. And definitely that patience is also needed, right? So with an humble approach, we actually try to sacrifice ourselves in the service of the Lord, the service of the devotees. And together, we can all eradicate this ignorance that is there. We are all suffering due to ignorance, na? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he personally demonstrated in his own life how simple and how sublime is this process of Krishna consciousness. It is a movement of true love and trust. It is a movement where petty quarrels and differences which take place because of false egos are not considered of any relevance. Because why? Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says we have higher purpose. Higher purpose is to perfect our lives. If we have this humble service attitude, then we can transcend all these materialistic problems which are causing pain and suffering in the world. That is why this knowledge, bhakti, has to be awakened. There are so many dangers in the society, isn't it? So many imminent situations that cause us to be in grief and sorrow. Something or the other is happening every day. So we have to, that's why Srila Prabhupada over and over stresses, okay, you have to come and rise above this bodily concept of life, rise above these modes of material nature, right? Rise above. It's just not easy, of course, but if we have this determination to do strict sadhana, so many people have sacrificed so many things. They have given up everything in their life. That means this process is working, isn't it? If the process is not working, why would they give up everything and just dedicate their lives for Krishna? We see examples that are there in the society. So there is definitely that pratiksha is there. Apart from Shabda, we also have pratiksha. So now our duty is to come together, chant the holy names of the Lord. This way we invoke the spiritual power that protects us from all the calamities of this material existence. When we come together with the purpose of chanting the glories of the holy names of the Lord, the proper service attitude, then we are no longer situated in this material world. We are no longer subjected to greed, envy, pride, and all other quarrel, hypocrisy. Kali Yuga is definitely age of false ego. In this age, there is a lot of ahankara, there is a lot of quarrel, there is a lot of hypocrisy. There is nothing that is not there in this time. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is also there to us. Whoever has this mercy should tightly hold on to the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and ask him, Krishna Prema. Ask him for the love of Godhead. Ask him. Of course, it should be the Trinatapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Manina Manadena Kirtaniya Hata Sadahari. That mood, when we develop that mood, everything in this world, Krishna will be so happy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will be so happy, and we'll be able to serve devotees with such great purity. So with this, I think we can conclude today's lecture, and I'll open up the forum for question and answer sessions. Thank you, devotees. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Chakalpatarubhyasya kripasandubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Now it's an open session. If anyone has a question, please kindly unmute. Haribol. Well, Mataji, it seems there is no question, or
I think people are trying to assimilate, devotees are trying to assimilate.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I can see Dhruti has unmuted. Dhruti, Hare Krishna, do you have a question?
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dhruti.
Mataji, I have a question. Okay, you were talking about the forecasts early on, and you said if everyone is able to work according to their caste, then the order of life would be better, right?
Harmoniously, having Krishna in the center, if everybody is trying to follow what is being prescribed in terms of their prescribed duties, if they were to do having Krishna in the center, then that is the perfect way.
So, okay, I'm having a confusion because according to, okay, just in general, we say we don't really have a caste system. Everyone is equal.
Yes. So caste system is something that was created. We are not, I mean, that is why Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that we should not artificially impose anything on us. Caste system is something that there were so many caste systems that came into place, isn't it? So many, even within Brahmins, there are so many caste systems that were kind of made up. But again, Varna and Ashrama is the one that Lord created, isn't it? Varna and Ashrama was created specifically so that people can actually progress in this yoga ladder. Okay, because everybody will not have this bhakti sukruti, bhakti unmukha sukruti. See, if you were to come into bhakti, we need to have association with pure devotee, and that because of that association, only we are here, isn't it? Not everybody is a bhakta. Each of them have their own inclinations. And for people with other inclinations, this varna and ashrama is there so that slowly they can progress from where they are, come to the Nishkama platform, and from there they can take up to Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, depending on what their inclination is. Slowly. Dhriti,
Okay,
did it?
so
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so does that mean that when you're able to have full devotion towards Krishna, you're able to jump the ladder up the caste,
Correct.
the ladder of the caste? Are you able to jump up? Because like
Correct.
yesterday's class, we were talking about okay, the three classes of people we have when it comes to devotion to God. The neophytes and the ones who go to the temple, and then the ones who are purely into it. So is that also something that we can refer to the caste that, yeah, okay, I am in this caste now in the lower stage. So if I'm able to do A, B, C, and D, can I go up higher, the other caste?
So there's no higher and lower. So if you look at the example that I was talking from Chaitanya Charitamrita, everybody, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that it's not, Mukunda doesn't have lower service compared to Raghunandan or compared to Narahari Sarkar, nothing. So he treated all these services as very important, equal. So that is why we should not again, look at one varna to be inferior to another varna. That should be avoided. All the varnas, they play a very important role. Varna and ashrama, they play a very important role. They are all limbs of the body. If one limb is not working, the other limb is not going to get any nourishment because of non-functioning of the one of the limbs in the body. So this is very important. I mean, nothing is inferior or superior. In the process of bhakti, we are, if a person is in bhakti adhikar, then he is transcended this varna ashrama. Okay, varna ashrama is for a sect of people who are still climbing up this yoga ladder. But if somebody is into bhakti, they have already gotten the best. And all they have to do is, okay, I'm here in Sadhu Sangha, there is Anartha Nivritti, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. Like that, he has to progress through those stages of bhakti in order to get to the perfect prema. Okay, so that is the understanding, and nothing is inferior or superior, and we should never have that judgmental attitude as to one is superior over the other. Of course, when it comes to sannyasis and brahmacharis, the grahasthas have natural respect for them, because when it comes to sacrifice, they have sacrificed everything for the service of the Lord. So that's the reason that mood is imbibed. And but again, from a varna ashrama perspective, everybody is very important. They are all important limbs, and one is not superior over the other. All these limbs, all these varnas and ashramas, they can definitely reach the perfection. Grahastha can definitely get prema. Sannyasi can. Everybody can, if they do strict sadhana. If they do it with a proper intent and proper mood, there is no doubt we are all going back to Godhead. Did it answer, Dhriti?
Yeah. I thank you so much.
Wonderful.
It's just
Thank
that
you.
sometimes you find you're living in a society and you just find everyone is trying to make the other one feel inferior, or make the other one feel superior. Like there is that discrimination when it comes to caste. So
Correct.
yeah.
And that is what Prabhupada also mentions in the purport. One should not, a higher section should not, if they consider higher, again, higher is just a mentality that they have. Nobody is higher or lower, but that mentality is there. Okay, that should be curbed. Okay, good.
Okay, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Panchali Mataji.
Yes, she has a question.
Hare Krishna Mataji, apologies, I know it's time, so I'll ask very quickly. I think you might have actually answered the question by answering the previous one. So my question was, again, around the caste system. So I was just listening to another lecture by Prabhuji on Mahabharat about Karna. He was cursed because he didn't reveal his caste by his guru, and he behaved like a Kshatriya, but he was in a Brahmin family. Is that because he actually, was he cursed because he was, he lied about his curse, about his caste, or is it because there was a difference in judging him because of his different caste? But I think you just answered it. There isn't any difference. It's just the way one serves according to one's own natural constitution, isn't it?
Correct. The thing is, in Karna's case, it was falsity. Falsity to a spiritual master is not at all advisable, isn't it? I mean, if you look at Ramayana also, Hanuman, when Ram and Lakshman actually came to meet, Ram and Lakshman came to meet Sugriva. At that time, Hanuman was sent as a messenger. He disguised himself as a Brahmin, and then he went before them. At that time, Ram didn't have a direct conversation with Hanuman because he was pretending to be somebody else. So when that mood of pretension is there, Ram didn't talk. So falsity or pretension, that is duplicitous nature, is something, cheating nature is something that spiritual masters will not tolerate. So if Karna were to reveal who he is before he actually got into this, first of all, he would not have agreed. Second of all, so that is why he actually pretended himself to be somebody else. So that mood of pretension or hypocrisy, that cheating propensity, is definitely not advisable. And you even if you learn some art with the cheating propensity, you will forget it at the time of when it comes to execution. So that is the potency of cheating. Being hypocritical or having this cheating mentality will not lead you anywhere. So that is the lesson we need to understand through the story of Karna.
Thank
Did
you,
it help,
Mataji.
Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, any other question? Maybe not. I think, Mataji, we've exhausted all the questions. I would like to hand over to Prahlad Prabhu to close the session, please.
Hare Krishna. First, I would like to thank Her Grace Radhika Kasturi Mataji for giving us this wonderful class that was very, very beneficial towards all of us. Mataji, it was a very wonderful class, very elaborative and very enlightening. So we thank you on behalf of ISKCON Eldoret. We thank you for taking some time out of probably a busy schedule and coming and giving us this knowledge to remove us from ignorance. So on behalf of ISKCON Eldoret, we would like to thank you, Mataji, by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once. So I would like to kindly request all the devotees assembled here, kindly unmute yourselves and let's chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once for Her Grace Radhika Kasturi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vancha
Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa
Sindhubhya
eva cha,
cha,
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Her Grace Radhika Kasturi Mataji ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. It was my
Hare
pleasure.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank
Prahlad
you.
Prabhu.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare.
Hare
Thank you very much,
Krishna.
Mataji.